Hello gamers, Review 9 will be focusing on 3 games instead of 1, as I will be looking at the Super Star Wars Trilogy. This includes Super Star Wars, which was released in 1992, Super Empire Strikes Back, which was released in 1993, and Super Return of the Jedi, released in 1994. They were all exclusively released on the Super Nintendo, although Super Return of the Jedi was released on Nintendo Game Boy and Sega Game Gear. The reason I've decided to do all 3 as one review is because of the fact that they all look, sound and play exactly the same. It seemed pointless for me to give each a separate review when I would be basically reviewing the same game. I, however, did not want to leave it only at one review since it would feel incomplete, hence the entire trilogy is done. The Super Star Wars Trilogy is classed as run-and-gun games. The concept works just like a platform game, as getting from point A to point B is the main objective of most levels. You have to fight enemies, avoid hazards, and overcome environmental challenges. Unlike a platform game, though, you have no time limit, but this doesn't mean you can stop and take a break, because the enemies will just keep on respawning and attacking in the masses, which means you have to be constantly on the move and fighting, hence run and gun. At the end of every normal level, you encounter a boss that has its own unique style of attack, and is only defeated once their health bar is emptied. Occasionally the games call for you to take control of a vehicle of some sort, including sand speeders, X-Wing fighters, or the Millennium Falcon. These levels are presented in Mode 7 3D graphics and usually have the objective of either defeating a set number of opponents or reaching an area without dying. As expected, the Super Star Wars Trilogy takes events from the original trilogy of Star Wars films and turns them into action platforming levels. In the first 2 games, you play as Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, and Chewbacca. Although while in Super Star Wars offers you a choice in whom you can play as, Super Empire Strikes Back does not. The choice of character is returned in Super Return of the Jedi, and includes Princess Leia and Wicket the Ewok as playable characters. In between levels, the story is told through movie stills and scrolling text. Most enemies in the game are based on creatures that are seen in the backgrounds of the films, since any prominent enemies are boss characters. Although basically in the first game all characters play exactly the same in the fact that they run, jump and shoot, come Empire Strikes Back, Luke unlocks his Jedi powers, giving you the ability to use your lightsaber, use the Force, and double jump. Occasionally a thermal detonator appears on screen and can be picked up. When detonated, it kills everything on screen, however it may only be held for a few seconds before expiring. The controls for Super Star Wars are well laid out. The D-pad, as expected, moves your character around, makes him duck, and chooses which direction you fire when using a laser blaster. The B button makes your character jump, and when playing as a character that can double jump, you merely press it again to jump in mid-air. The Y button attacks. When playing as Luke with a lightsaber, if Y is held down, he will put up a guard that can deflect projectiles back at the enemy. The A button makes use of the character's special abilities. For example, Luke uses force powers, and Han Solo throws grenades. The X button sets off your thermal detonator if you're carrying one. Also, the select button is used to choose force powers when playing as Luke. The character models for Super Star Wars are okay, but can look a bit blurry at times, but at least you can tell who you are playing as and distinguish the different characters on screen. It is also worth noting that most of the time you'll be on the move, so you won't have time to sit around and look at the complete detail of your character. The background designs, however, look really good. They completely capture the look of the area you're supposed to be in. The cutscenes are also very good. They may be recreated movie stills, but most of the time they are really good recreated movie stills. Plus, on the odd occasion, some of them move, and it holds out against some of the early stuff on PlayStation 1. Mode 7 levels, where you control a vehicle, can look rough, but once again, since you'll be moving most of the time, you won't really notice, and when you are moving, it will look how it should. As with every Star Wars game I have played, the soundtrack is really good. Basically, it only uses music that was heard in the film, but the way they managed to make it sound with a 16-bit sound system is amazing. The sound effects is good too, with sound clips from the film being used to great extent. Super Star Wars is a remake of a Star Wars game that appeared on the Nintendo Entertainment System, Sega Master System, Nintendo Game Boy, and Sega Game Gear. The original played more along the lines of a conventional platformer mixed with RPG elements. The same goes with Super Empire Strikes Back. However, there was no original Return of the Jedi game preceding the Super version. This could be the reason why it also appeared on Game Boy and Game Gear. Super Star Wars was originally going to have a PC port that was looking graphically superior to the SNES version. A change in management at LucasArts, however, meant the game was never released, since it did not fit in with the lineup of games they were doing at the time. This is kind of ironic considering how much LucasArts milks Star Wars for all it's worth these days. When Super Empire Strikes Back was going to release, there was great concern over how difficult it was going to be to complete. Therefore, the password system was implemented into the game for the first time. The first bad point that comes to my mind is that Super Star Wars did not have a password system or save system of any kind. Although the difficulty was not too bad, it meant that you had to play through the game in one sitting, which was a challenge in its own right. Super Empire Strikes Back, although implementing the password system, had a crippling difficulty. In Super Return of the Jedi, how come Wicket is the most powerful character in the game? He can kill things quicker with a bow and arrow than any of the characters can with a blaster. A weak point for all the games is that, at times, too many enemies flood the screen at once, and serves more as a hindrance to the game rather than a challenge, since it causes a bit of slow-up. The entire series of games looks, sounds, and plays very well, and are a collection of some of the best action games of the early 90s. They also recreate Star Wars in a 2D environment near perfectly. The character variety is refreshing. When you get tired of playing as Luke, you can play as Han Solo. The vehicle sections are nowhere near as bad as the driving sections in modern games today. They play well and are huge entertainment. Of course, as a positive, as with all Star Wars games, is the huge soundtrack that's included. The Super Star Wars series were the closest video games to recreate the Star Wars films at the time of release. If you think about it, they parallel the films in some way, with Star Wars being the beginning and establishment, Empire Strikes Back being the challenging times, and Return of the Jedi being the action-packed, explosive finale. Plus, these games are still fun to play when considering other Star Wars games of modern times, such as Jedi Knight and Knights of the Old Republic. Super Star Wars, in despite of the fact that you have to play it in one go, is easy enough to get into, and you can fight it out. Super Empire Strikes Back, despite its vicious difficulty, recreated the film well, and Super Return of the Jedi seems to get the perfect balance. Super Star Wars gets 8 out of 10. Super Empire Strikes Back also gets 8 out of 10. Super Return of the Jedi gets the better score of 10 out of 10. Together as a collective, I believe that 9 out of 10 is fair. You should be able to find all these games on eBay and Amazon at reasonable prices. There is a leaked version of Super Star Wars PC version on the internet somewhere. However, LucasArts forbids anyone from downloading it, since they hold the license to the game. I couldn't tell you anyway, since I don't know where it is. If you want to get in contact with me to ask questions or request a review, you can use my email address that's on screen now. I would like you to comment freely, and if you want, you can subscribe to my videos. My next review won't be on video games as such, or for giving out scores. Instead, I'll be looking over the history of video game-based movies and the possible future of where they're going. Until then, I'll see you later.